Evil Within 2 is absolutely better than Evil Within 1 in pretty much every conceivable metric except for its sales numbers. And nothing is more aggravating to me than seeing a true sequel get less attention and less sales despite being a genuinely improved product over its predecessor. And I don't mean this simply to say something along the lines of like my taste or anything else. I mean, I think if you actually try and measure it, everything is genuinely better. You have better graphics, of course. You have much more options when it comes to gameplay and combat. You have a much better story. Just, there you go. Looks better, plays better, story's better. There's more combat, there's more enemy variety. It's significantly more original. I know what's going on more of the time. It's better paced, and it's just a larger, more fulfilling game, in my opinion. It's interesting that something that is notably of much higher quality is just generally not given that kind of attention. And here's the thing, my knowledge is actually better rated than the original game, so it's not like this is an underappreciated game in regards to quality. The people who are aware of this game do like it, think it's good, and generally share my opinion that it's better than the original, but so few people actually came back to play this game that it's kind of a moot point. Because Tango, the studio that made this, is not working on a sequel, or at the very least, since they're working on Ghostwire, they are not in the process of working on a sequel at this exact moment, and no DLC has come out for the game either. What do you do? But if you want to know my thoughts on the original game, to be brief, you can check out my video on Evil Within 1, the link will be in the description, or you can just check the videos on our channel. And most, if not all of the things that I had complained about for Evil Within 1 are directly addressed here. All of the rules of the world are consistent, unlike the first one. The motives of the characters are much clearer in this one compared to the first one. The combat is a bit more fleshed out instead of just being a send-up to Resident Evil 4, which is just always nice. And enemy variety is also much better. It's more original, and it's weird to see a sequel have more originality than the actual first one, considering that it's a new IP.
Team leader. One bullet. Straight through the head.
So here's the main thing I'll say in regards to this, to kind of give a little bit of a recap. When you play Evil Within 1, you show up to a hospital because a disturbance happened and you're sent in. You're a cop. And then shit just kind of spirals out of nowhere. You have no idea what's going on. You have no idea how to get out. Your main goal is just survive and leave. And then you do. You just kind of wander around aimlessly, hoping to just get out of whatever area you happen to be in. And I guess you just walk forward because that's what you want to do. But in this one, you have a very, very clear goal. You know exactly what you need to do. Goal, your daughter is stuck inside the same dream-making machine as the first game, and the people they sent in have not been responding. Since you're more familiar with it due to your past experience, as well as your general ability to handle yourself as a cop and someone who's had a lot of combat via the past game, you are the best suited to go in there and get them. So it makes sense from why they want you to do it and why you would want to do it. So when you go in there and things aren't quite right, this isn't the game kind of, we'll say, putting you along for the ride. This is, they explicitly state they don't know what's going to happen, and that they need your ability to adapt on the fly to be able to alleviate that issue. Now, considering that, when you actually do get into the game, anything that leads you towards finding Sebastian's daughter is exactly what your character does. Anything else is tertiary to that, and it makes plenty of sense. I mention this because there are side missions and side objectives in this game. Believe it or not, there are several segments of this game, not all of them, but several segments that are open world. This town that you play in can be explored at your own pace, at your own leisure. You can pretty much go anywhere that the game world will allow you. You can find hidden objects, weapon caches, expansions to your arsenal, whether it be additional weapons or expansions to your weapon pouches so you can hold more ammo at once. And you can go on these at any point, and you can just kind of explore and do your own thing. It's not necessarily fully open world. Eventually you will run out of things to do, and then you have to go to the main sections of the game to have the world open up again, so to speak. But it's just a really cool thing that they did. The last one was extraordinarily linear. Like, it just was, you go where you need to go. There's no necessarily branching paths or puzzles. You would just kind of go to where it wants you to. And now that you have the freedom to kind of look where you need to go, it just helps a lot, especially because of the way the game presents side missions. These aren't ones that just show up randomly. You have a communicator that can pick up nearby radio signals. So when you turn it on, you'll see these little semicircles that show up as stray or unknown signals, and then you can choose to follow them and hone in on them, which as soon as you've tagged them, they will then show up on your map. So, no joke, randomly exploring the map can actually lead to all sorts of side activities that you can do at your own time and at your own pace, barring that the story hasn't concluded them for you. Because the game world actually changes throughout. The open world will change drastically after certain points of the game, and this is a good way to make it feel fresh. Most open world games might have the issue of feeling kind of samey if you've been able to explore them a lot, but having the entire world have different states based on what part of the story you're in is a good way to change this, especially because not only does it make it look more visually interesting, but it changes the environment, and it changes the kind of monsters that are around for you to fight, which is always a plus so that it doesn't get stale. And I'll say this, and this is a minor spoiler, but I won't go into specific details. The final boss of this game is actually a final boss. To reiterate why I say this, the final boss in Evil Within is not a boss. At least not in the conventional sense. The final boss that you face in the original Evil Within amounts to essentially a cutscene. It's a big giant set piece, and then you hit the big glowy point, and you don't even have your full arsenal on hand to be able to do what you want to do with this. This is just, you get flung around with big cutscene, big set pieces, some quick time events too, and then you win the game. It is a weirdly anticlimactic ending because, mind you, we're talking about survival horror games. The thing with survival horror is supposed to be reliance and familiarity of the tools and resources that you have. If you run out of certain things, you have to use other stuff, and having your full toolkit available is essential for final bosses. Because I'll say this, there are games that I love that also have this issue, but it's important to point out, there are a surprisingly high number of games where the final boss encounter will just give you a bunch of new powers out of nowhere and won't let you use your regular kit. And this can actually be very distracting, because it's like you've been familiarizing yourself with the gameplay this whole time, and then at the last minute, bam, that's not even relevant anymore. That is the case in the original game, and I found it to be a deeply, deeply unsatisfying anticlimax. This game, though, not only is the boss very, very story relevant and emotionally impactful, but it's an actual boss. You get to use all your weapons, all your ammo, all of your techniques. Everything is applicable to this boss fight. And that is the best thing about this, is they seem to have taken everything that I have personally said, as well as other people have said, about the first game, and addressed them in the sequel. And I just wish that maybe the first game was a little more popular, because then people would have stuck around for this one. But they haven't. if I had to give ratings, I'd probably give the first game, if I'm being generous, a 6 out of 10. You know, because it did some cool things, you know, graphically it's fine, and some story elements I think were interesting, but it's honestly like a 5. You know, maybe a 6 if I'm generous. This one's a solid 8, even a 9, I would say, depending on what you have with this. But they've given it a good amount of support and options for it too. There's even a first-person mode for people who want to go through the game in that style. But overall, the improvements to be visually interesting, to be narratively compelling, and to just have an overall better gameplay experience mean that I think this is a fantastic game, and you should definitely pick it up. It's really not that expensive on Steam. If you can, go check it out sometime and give it some love. See you around for next Halloween episode.